Most people won't lose their financial future because they never learned a formula. They'll lose it because nobody warned them that money is a psychological weapon, and the trigger is almost always fear. Welcome to Money Animate, where we don't worship hustle or glamorize luxury. We study the quiet mechanics that decide who gets freedom and who gets trapped. If you want stories that feel like a mirror instead of a motivational poster, subscribe in the same way wealthy people move. Calmly, privately, before the crowd understands why it matters. Because the modern world trains people to be functional, not financially dangerous. It teaches them to follow instructions, chase credentials, and measure worth in applause, yet it leaves out the one skill they'll use every day: how to handle money when emotions spike and the future feels uncertain. That gap doesn't stay theoretical. It becomes consumer debt that grows in the background like a silent tax. It becomes rent that rises faster than confidence. It becomes healthcare costs that arrive like punishment. It becomes layoffs that erase loyalty with a single message. It becomes inflation that quietly steals from anyone who saves without a plan. It becomes AI disruption that rearranges entire careers before people can adjust their identity. In that climate, most people don't want wealth. They want relief. They want proof they're safe. They want to look stable even when they feel unstable. That's why so many chase shiny shortcuts, loud lifestyles, and complicated strategies they can't explain. And that's why an ordinary teacher becoming a millionaire is such a sharp story, because it doesn't flatter anyone's fantasies. It exposes what actually works. 7 rules so plain, so boring, so repeatable that the average person dismisses them, then spends decades paying for that dismissal. The first rule is the real test of wealth, and it's not about intelligence, income, or being good with numbers. The real test is what happens inside your body when the world panics. Markets fall, headlines howl, social feeds turn into a chorus of dread, and suddenly the future feels like it's shrinking. In that moment, the brain doesn't care about decades of data or long-term averages. It cares about immediate pain. It wants action, not accuracy. It wants to stop the discomfort, not build a plan. This is where people confuse motion with control. They sell after the drop, freeze contributions, abandon their strategy, and call it being responsible, not realizing they are locking in damage. This isn't stupidity, it's biology. Loss hurts more than gain feels good, and the market is a machine that repeatedly tests that weakness. The teacher understood a brutal truth. Volatility is not the main danger. The main danger is the investor's own reflex. Money behaves like a tree that grows underground before it grows above ground. For a long time, progress looks invisible. Then a storm arrives. The impatient person digs the tree up to protect it, and that rescue becomes the killing. The teacher did something colder and more effective. Decisions were made before the storm, not during it. The plan assumed fear would arrive, and the plan was designed so fear wouldn't get a vote. The teacher didn't need to predict the market. The teacher needed to obey a system when obedience felt hardest. That is the first rule in its purest form. Build a strategy that can survive your worst emotional day, because the world will eventually schedule one. The second rule is quiet wealth beats loud wealth, and this rule stings because it attacks identity. Modern culture is engineered to make spending look like success. It turns consumption into a personality and upgrades into a moral achievement. Cars become armor. Vacations become evidence. Gadgets become proof you're not falling behind. And the trick is that this performance doesn't require wealth. It requires payments. A person can look rich while being one unexpected bill away from panic. Meanwhile, the truly dangerous kind of wealthy person is often invisible. No sparkles, no announcements. No need for witnesses. Quiet wealth is not a lack of taste. It's a refusal to be controlled by other people's eyes. The teacher lived slightly below what could be justified, not because joy was forbidden, but because freedom was prioritized. Think of each dollar as a worker under your command. Spend it thoughtlessly, and you fire that worker forever. Invest it, and you send it out to recruit more workers on your behalf. Most people keep firing their future workforce to buy short-term status, then wonder why they feel trapped. Lifestyle creep is the most polite trap in the world. It arrives as a reward. Income rises and expenses rise to meet it, until the raise becomes invisible and the new lifestyle becomes a new baseline that must be defended. Quiet wealth rejects that treadmill. Quiet wealth is the ability to keep your life simple enough that your money can grow into leverage instead of disappearing into upgrades. Loud wealth buys admiration for a moment. Quiet wealth buys time. The third rule is compounding, and not the childish version people sell online where money just multiplies. Compounding is a law of time. It rewards patience, consistency, and the willingness to look unimpressive for longer than your ego wants to tolerate. In the early years, compounding feels insulting. You contribute, you wait, and the growth looks small. Your brain whispers that it would be smarter to spend the money now because the future feels abstract. This is where most people fail, not because they can't invest, but because they can't endure slow progress. The teacher endured it by understanding the shape of the curve. The snowball starts tiny at the top of the hill. It looks like nothing. It looks like a joke. And then, if you keep pushing it with steady contributions, it eventually becomes too heavy for doubt to stop. Compounding doesn't need excitement. It needs time, and time only obeys those who start before they feel ready and keep going when they feel bored. The fourth rule is where the money goes. Low-cost index funds, the kind of investing that doesn't make people feel clever, which is exactly why it works for so many. An index fund is the decision to stop trying to outsmart millions of investors, institutions, and algorithms, and instead align with broad ownership of the market. It is buying the forest instead of gambling on a single tree. It's admitting that certainty is expensive and usually fake, and that the most reliable edge for ordinary people is not secret information. It is low fees, wide diversification, and time. Fees matter because they don't attack once. They bleed you every year, and they bleed your compounding at the root. A small percent can become a life-changing difference over decades, not because the percent is huge, but because the years are. The teacher chose simplicity because simplicity is harder to exploit. Complexity is a marketplace full of salespeople. Simplicity is a locked door. The fifth rule is balance, because even a strong engine needs brakes. People talk about risk like it's a statistic, but risk is really behavior. It's what you do when your account drops and your confidence drops with it. A balanced portfolio is not about maximizing returns at any cost. It's about building something you can live with when the world gets loud. Stocks tend to be the growth engine over long horizons, but they can be emotionally violent in the short term. Bonds or other stabilizing assets can reduce that emotional violence, giving you a smoother ride so you don't sabotage yourself at the worst time. The teacher didn't chase the highest possible gains. The teacher built a structure that could survive bad seasons without forcing a betrayal of the plan. And the teacher added another layer of humility, diversification beyond a single country or single story. Comfort is not the same as safety. Economies change, currencies shift, sectors collapse, and the future does not sign contracts with your assumptions. Spreading exposure is not pessimism, it is respect for uncertainty. The sixth rule is the one polite culture avoids. Be wary of financial help that profits from keeping you dependent. This isn't an attack on every advisor, it's a reminder that incentives matter more than smiles. The financial world often uses complexity as a fog machine. When you feel confused, you outsource. When you outsource, you pay. When you pay, your future quietly shrinks. The teacher learned to ask one question that cuts through the fog. How is this person or institution compensated if I follow this recommendation? If the answer was tied to commissions, hidden fees, or percentages that grew forever, suspicion became the default. In a world where marketing can dress greed as guidance, basic investing literacy becomes self-defense. You don't need to become a professional. You need to be unexploitable. And if your situation is simple, the teacher's mindset was clear. Paying for unnecessary complexity is like renting handcuffs because someone told you freedom is hard. The seventh rule is rebalancing, the quiet ritual that turns market chaos into disciplined advantage. Markets don't move politely. They surge, crash, and distort your portfolio over time, pulling you away from your intended risk level. Rebalancing is maintenance, not prediction. It's returning your portfolio to its chosen shape by trimming what has grown too dominant and adding to what has fallen behind. Done once or twice a year, or even by directing new contributions toward the underweighted side, rebalancing quietly trains you to act like a machine when others act like a mob. And that's the deeper point of the teacher's entire journey. These rules are not really about money. They are about identity under pressure. The teacher became wealthy by refusing the doors everyone else runs through. The door marked panic. The door marked status. The door marked shortcuts. The door marked complexity. The door marked dependency. Each refusal looked small in the moment, almost invisible, like nothing. But time has a cruel way of rewarding the invisible. Over years, those quiet choices compound into something that does sparkle but changes everything. Options. And options are the true definition of wealth in the modern age. Not because options make you superior, but because options make you safe. They let you walk away from a toxic job. They let you survive a layoff without begging the next employer for mercy. They let you handle a medical bill without your life collapsing. They let you adapt when technology reshapes your industry. They let you breathe. People chase passive income fantasies because they want escape without discipline. Sometimes luck hands someone a shortcut, but most people who chase shortcuts only find new cages. The teacher's method was the opposite. Accept boredom, reject spectacle, invest consistently, keep costs low, balance risk, resist manipulation, rebalance, repeat. And one more nuance matters, because discipline without humanity turns into a different kind of poverty. Joy was not banned. Joy was planned. When pleasure is accidental, it becomes a leak. When pleasure is deliberate, it becomes a choice. The teacher didn't starve life to feed a spreadsheet. The teacher gave fun a boundary so fun wouldn't swallow the future. That is the difference between a life that feels restricted and a life that feels designed. If there is a lesson hidden under all 7 rules, it is this. The market doesn't require you to be brilliant. It requires you to be steady. Wealth isn't built by the person who wants money the most. Wealth is built by the person who needs approval the least. In a world that profits from your impulsiveness, calm is a competitive advantage. In a world that sells you identity through purchases, restraint is a form of power. And in a world that changes faster than anyone can predict, a simple system obeyed for a long time can outperform almost any burst of intensity. Money reveals human nature the same way pressure reveals cracks. It doesn't create who you are, it exposes who you already were. So build rules that make your best self automatic, because your future won't be decided on your best day. It will be decided on the day fear shows up and asks for the keys. If this changed how you see your next paycheck, your next purchase, and your next moment of panic, stay with money, animate, and subscribe, because the next story won't just teach you what to do with money. It will teach you how to stop money from doing something to you.